Welcome to the Tyler Loop's first ever Candid Conversation. I'm Jane Neal, the Tyler Loop's Executive Director. We know from past elections that as few as 100 votes can swing a local election. City Council elections in Tyler are swiftly approaching, and your vote matters to this city. In this Candid Conversation, you'll hear from 5 of the 6 City Council candidates on the ballot. Kenneth Freeman, Greg Grubb, Stuart Hene, Shirley McKellar, and Bob Westbrook are with us. Our talented community moderators are Dr. Ashley Kutach and Dr. Kent Willis. We hope you'll share this broadcast widely so voters will know the issues impacting our life and future together. Let's begin.
All right, good evening. We're speaking to Tyler District 1 City Council candidates Greg Grubb and Stuart Hene this evening. Early voting is April the 19th through the 27th, and Election Day is on May 1st.
Hi, I'm Ashley Kutach, and I am the Vice President of People and Chief of Staff at Mentoring Minds, and I'll be one of the moderators today, along with...
And I'm Kent Willis, and I'm a higher education professional here in town, and definitely a concerned citizen.
Well, let's meet our candidates, starting with Greg Grubb. Greg is the retired director of Tyler's charitable nonprofit organization, People Attempting to Help, which most of us call PATH. And he has experience in business and nonprofit leadership and church leadership as well.
All right, thank you. And Stuart is a local attorney here in town and a member of Marvin United Methodist Church, where he's on the board of trustees.
So, Greg, to get to know you a little bit, if you had out-of-town guests coming in and you were going to entertain them for the day and show off the city of Tyler at its best, what would be some plans?
Well, thanks for that question. So what we do normally is when our grandkids come is we go to Burkeville Park. Burkeville Park is such a great place to go to start, I think, any tour or any indoctrination or any familiarity with Tyler. Burkeville Park is a place that people gather, all different backgrounds, all different family makeups, and they're there to enjoy themselves in the outdoors, and that's what Tyler excels at, just providing a place, a space for families to gather together and enjoy themselves. So it's such a gathering place. That's where I start. I go downtown after that. I love to show off the downtown area to my family and my friends who come in. Downtown is redeveloping. It's a lot like other downtowns. It's had ups and downs over the years, but it's redeveloping and looks like a place that's really interesting to be at. There are more and more things to do. As we come back south then, I would come back down through District 1. I would show my folks the wonderful trail system that we have developed. It's something new, a new part of District 1 and of Tyler in particular. Legacy Trails, it's a beautiful place to go as well. So I want them to see Tyler, to experience Tyler, not just hear about Tyler.
Well, Kim, before we jump into a question from you, I'd love to hear a little bit about your thoughts on the city. So let's take a little bit different spin. If it was a beautiful spring day like today and you happen to have a rare day off, what would be some of your plans?
Well, you're exactly right about a rare day off. There don't seem to be many days off. But if I had anybody coming in from out of town, especially in the springtime, the Azalea Trail, number one issue right there, especially being on the northern end of District 1. Part of the Azalea Trail runs through our district, so that'd be a must-see. The Rose Garden would be another place to take visitors from out of town, and especially with the revitalization project of Harvey Hall and the whole Rose Grounds complex. That'd be a great place to take visitors. But I'm also a foodie, so I'd also want to take them to Stanley's Barbecue, experience some of the best barbecue that we have here in the state of Texas, and then also take them to the patio at Fresh to enjoy a nice spring day.
Great.
All right. Awesome. Thank you both so much for highlighting some of the great things about Tyler. Let's jump right in with some more pointed questions that may help voters make a decision. So for you first, Mr. Grubb, in a recent interview with the Tyler Loop, you said that previous generations have provided great resources here and utilized the resources well. It is our responsibility now to take care of those resources and to make sure that they work for all citizens. Can you share one or two of the immediate resources that need attention?
So the resources in a city have to do with the things that have been installed and then built by the city. So we all came here. There's natural beauty to start with, so that's probably the primary resource that we have here in Tyler. So what are we going to do with that? How are we going to develop? How are we going to grow a city amongst the natural beauty that Tyler is? And so one of those infrastructure pieces that need attention is our streets and traffic control. I joke that everybody in Tyler has a particular spot or a particular light that they get really frustrated with in Tyler. And so that's an ongoing issue. It's something that the city is addressing, and they're making a good start at that. There is a 10-year plan to help with the synchronization of the lights to make that better. My sense is we really can't afford to wait 10 more years to synchronize the existing lights while the city continues to grow and expand. So we need to accelerate that. We need to find a way to complete that process in a way that gets results quicker. We've been promised improvement in traffic flow with traffic system optimization plans before, and we haven't really seen a lot of results from that. So that'd be number one, is the traffic flow and our street system. Number two, I think the thing that jumped up and bit us that we didn't expect to happen was our water system totally failing on us during the winter storm. And so that clearly needs some attention. We need to be ready in a more prepared way than we were. We thought we were ready, but we weren't ready. And so in order to keep that vital part of our city services going, we need to upgrade our winterization. We need to upgrade that water system so that we never have a failure again.
Excellent. Thank you so much for pointing out two very important infrastructure needs in the city. And now to you, Mr. Hene. In a recent interview with Tyler Loop, you said that you want to promote and foster small business and not enact things that would hinder the commerce of those businesses and their ability to operate in the community. What do you recognize as hindrances to commerce and business, and what would you do to mitigate them?
Sure. So some of the hindrances that you could foresee that would limit the operations of small businesses and citizens of Tyler would be excessive government interference, higher taxes. And so keeping the tax rate low, limiting debt, keeping that half-cent sales tax in effect and paying as you go for the projects that would benefit the city, keeping the government out of the way of those businesses so they can fully operate and fully function. And so the people of Tyler are able to make their living and work and they do with their businesses that they own or work at.
Excellent. So if I might ask a follow-up question to each of them about this. So, Mr. Gregg, in your question, you responded about infrastructure, and you talked about the need for some ability with flow of traffic and control of traffic. What would you say to a District 1 member of the community who has concerns about the possibility of infrastructure being in their backyard or coming near their property, that they wouldn't really want that to happen? How would you help them grapple with the fact that we do need to improve traffic flow in the city and that infrastructure needs may have to be put above some of our personal property opinions?
That's a good question, but I think it's a false assumption. I don't think we have to intrude on personal property in order to improve the traffic flow. Just building bigger and more streets and roadways is not the way out. I mean, I grew up in Houston in the 70s, and they have been building and building and building and have still not built their way out of the traffic flow problems in Houston. This is something that we need to figure out how to deal with the current facilities that we have. We can modernize, we can upgrade our traffic flow system so that the traffic moves the way it's supposed to on the existing roadways without intruding further into people's yards or taking away their businesses because we need more right-of-way. We've got to figure out how to do that, and I think we can. I think we can be innovative enough there so that we can develop the growth of this city in a way that doesn't deteriorate from the quality of life of the existing citizens that are here.
Excellent. And a quick follow-up for you, Mr. Hene. You talk about potential policies that might hinder commerce and small business type of growth and development. What kind of policies would you either get rid of or enact in order to improve the ability of small businesses in the city?
So like I just mentioned previously, it's keeping the half-cent sales tax in place, keeping the tax rate low and affordable for the citizens of Tyler, not raising taxes to punish the citizens of Tyler. So that'd be the main issue, is keeping the taxes low to foster the small business growth and not tax them where they would be hindered in making their money to provide back to the economy. And those citizens working at those businesses could then afford to keep working and keep their cost of living the way that Tyler is. That's one of the great benefits that Tyler has, is the cost of living here far outsee places like Dallas, Austin, and Houston. And that's one of the benefits and the draws of people wanting to live here in Tyler, is that great cost of living.
Okay, so taxes, infrastructure, and quality of life, and then I'm going to let us move on. The intersection between the two different topics that we're discussing here. So we're talking about policies that may hinder small business, commerce, the half-cent sales tax, some of these different funding mechanisms that are available to be able to make improvements in the city. Mr. Grubb, when it comes to infrastructure, what would you say about small businesses, the need for improved flow of traffic, and how you would assist as a member of the city council with collective decision-making that would help improve both of those? Because these are interrelated problems. And then if you could respond to the same question.
Yeah, so I think the traffic congestion, the problems with traffic flow are a major hindrance to small business right now. I think that is an issue that we need to improve traffic flow so that small business can thrive. And so there is a balancing point. Do we collect enough in taxes to take care of our business, or do we keep the tax rate low enough so that we can be proud of that, but not have enough money to put into our infrastructure? We got to get in line. We got to put projects in line for the half-cent sales tax funds, which is a great tool and has been used really well. But it is taking years and years to address the known traffic issues, in addition to all the other capital improvement issues that are on that list. So can we afford to wait for another 10 plus years before we address those issues? And I think not. I think we've got to get more creative than that. And we've proven we can get creative. Just quickly, Stuart mentioned the Rose Center renovation. An interesting, neat project, something that's been needed. RV Hall, we all know that needs to be upgraded, or in fact, it will be torn down and replaced, which is a great move. But we really wanted to do that, and so we found a way to do that. We didn't rely just on the property taxes. In fact, we didn't rely on property taxes. We relied on the hotel, motel taxes. We relied on some debt that's going to be serviced by those taxes. We relied on some donations, some money that had been set aside. So if we really want a project to happen, we can make it happen.
Excellent. And Mr. Hene?
So follow up on what Mr. Grubb said, or follow up on addressing the intersection of infrastructure and commerce?
Yeah, so hopefully a response to Mr. Grubb, if you have something that you would do differently so that voters can make a choice, because we can't elect both of you, as nice as that would be for this one seat. So what is it that a person would distinguish between the two of you when it comes to infrastructure, taxes, and the needs of Tyler?
So in Mr. Grubb's response, I heard a lot of howevers and buts when he was discussing the half-cent sales tax and taxes in general. And I'm not going to raise taxes. There are no howevers and there are no buts. The tax rate for a fiscal conservative community as Tyler, and the mindset of the citizens, not just in District 1, but in Tyler in general, is low taxes, fiscal responsibility. And so one of the key words that I like to look at is efficiency. Are we, properly and efficiently using those funds? Is there extra waste that can be cut out? If we're specifically talking about infrastructure, one of the things that we could look at, I know the city is actively doing it, but it's maintaining it and making sure that it continues to happen, is when water lines and sewer lines are replaced, making sure that it coincides with the overlay projects. You don't want to have an overlay project on a road and then a month or a year later come in and tear up that same road to lay a new water line or sewer line. And so it's making sure those projects coincide with each other to minimize waste and minimize expenses and create efficiency.
Excellent. Thank you so much for allowing me to have those follow-ups.
Absolutely. I want to go back to a question, an answer that you gave earlier, Greg. You were talking about traffic and infrastructure, and certainly as the city has grown in the few decades that I've been here, that has been a concern. And as most cities and communities, though, we have a list of challenges. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about those of the city items that have been relegated to like a wait list. You mentioned a list because of funding. Which of those would you like to see put into motion?
So I'm not a current council member, and so I don't have access to the complete list of what all the capital improvement projects are that are on the list, but we do see some come to light each year, and every one of those are desperately needed. There's no argument with anything that has been done. What else is on that list? I know there are some stormwater drainage issues that are on that list, and that's a big concern here in District 1 as well. We've got some major creeks, some major runoff water tributaries that come through District 1 that cause flooding, cause erosion, cause damage every time there's a significant rain. And so those, we all know sooner or later we need to address those. We all know we need to improve the water flow through West Mud Creek, for instance, one of the major tributaries down through this area. So I don't have a complete list in front of me of what else is there, but when I see the water system fail, I know we're behind, and the water system is generally funded by the revenue coming through Tyler Water. So is that enough? Is that enough to keep up with the maintenance needs, the improvement needs? We'll see. There may be ways to optimize, but the city has done a really great job of optimizing over the last few years. And budgets have been tight, and they've really, city staff has done a good job, I think, in the past few years at optimizing and finding that efficiency.
And Stuart, are you aware of any issues that you would like to be set into motion on a list of challenges that face our city?
Echoing on what Mr. Grubb said, and kind of expanding on that, is the Mud Creek issue and the wastewater issue. And I've actually taken the time to sit down with some of the contractors and engineers that kind of work on some of those projects. And the city has great relationships with some of these private contractors and private businesses here in town to help in those situations. And so it's keeping those relationships in place and continuing to build those relationships where the contractors in the city have a great working relationship with each other. I know there's the plans in place with the consent decree to keep moving forward with the replacement of some of the stormwater drainage issues and addressing those needs. So it's continuing to stay on top of that and meet those deadlines that have been put in place by that consent decree.
Okay, great, thank you. Mm-hmm. Let's dig a little bit more into some of your experiences. So you're co-founder and partner at Terry and Hene.
Correct.
And also president of Prestige Energy Consultants, correct?
Yeah.
So how does all of your work inform what you believe is best for the city of Tyler?
Sure, so I have a unique background, both legal and business. And so combining those, I think it's a perfect fit for city council. Able to understand some of those complex legal documents that might come before city council, whether it be planning and zoning issues, architectural issues, consent decree issues with federal government. And so understanding how those documents work and being able to read and understand those documents, and at the same time, running a business, running my law firm, and then running an oil and gas company with my dad. You treat the city like you run a business also, and maintain that fiscal responsibility. And so being able to combine both of my backgrounds, I think, provides an outstanding spot for a role on city council that really hasn't been filled before with somebody with a legal background and business background.
Great, thank you for sharing
Yep.
that.
I think I have a quick follow-up
Okay.
to both of you, kind of based on your response there. So both of you have really unique backgrounds, and you bring a wealth of professional experience. And I think you have great merits in the things that you've said about your background and what it brings to City Council. Mr. Gregg, can you speak about your prior professional background and what you think it brings to City Council? And then I have a question that I'd like both of you to respond to whenever you get the chance to give us that information.
Yeah, I have 30 years of experience in oil and gas. I'm a graduate engineer from A&M and had experience in large companies, small companies, down to a small company that my partner and I owned, and we sold in 2006 and retired at that point. That allowed me to do a lot more volunteer and ministry-related work. I got more involved with my church, took on a leadership role there, and then we're on several boards of nonprofits and on city roundtables and task forces. In 2012, one of the nonprofits that I was particularly involved in, PATH, their executive director retired and from that role, and I felt this calling from the Lord to go ahead and apply for it. I didn't have experience in nonprofit management, but I did love the organization. I loved the mission, and went ahead and applied for it, and received that job, took it on in 2012, and spent the last 8 years doing that. So the nonprofit background, especially, I think, is relevant to City Council in that it's involved 100% local issues and 100% collaborative issues. Everything that was done at PATH had to be done collaboratively, raising the money, bringing together volunteers, taking care of the needs of our neighbors in need in Tyler.
That is awesome. So I think it would be safe to say that both of you have a pretty deep business background, but you're both men of faith, which means I think that you both would believe in taking care of the needs of the less fortunate citizens of Tyler. Unfortunately, some of these people may not fall into one district or another. They may be somewhat nomadic, if you will. They're looking for a place to stay. They're taking advantage of what resources are available within the nonprofit sector, which we have a huge nonprofit sector here that does a really good job of meeting the needs of the individuals in our community who may be less fortunate. So what role do you think City Council can play from a leadership perspective to meet the collective needs of citizens that may not necessarily reside in District 1? And we'll start with you, Mr. Hene.
Thank you, Kent. So the city is very fortunate to have great working relationships with the private sector, like I mentioned earlier, but also the nonprofit sector. I didn't have to wait until I retired to be active in my church in a leadership role or nonprofit. I've served on the Staff Parish Relations Committee, served on the Finance Committee, and now I'm currently on the Trustees Committee for Marvin. And at the same time, I'm on the board at St. Paul Children's Services, previously known as St. Paul Children's Foundation. And so, like you mentioned, Tyler has a wealth of nonprofit organizations, and the role that they play in our community are something that can't be replaced. It's great that we have that nonprofit presence here in Tyler. And the city of Tyler works really well with those nonprofit organizations. And so it's maintaining those relationships, keeping those avenues open, because it's not the job of city council or the job of the city to provide the funding for some of those programs. You can definitely partner with local private organizations and local nonprofits. And I think the leaders on city council and the city council members are great at doing that and promoting that and providing their skills and expertise to ensure that those avenues are met and that those relationships are maintained so programs like that can succeed.
So basically the key to it is the relationship between the elected officials on the city council and the nonprofit organizations in the community.
Correct.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Mr. Grubb?
I think the city can take a little more active role than that. I think the city can be a convener, a gatherer, because the perspective from the city is intentionally broader than any one of our nonprofits is. The nonprofits tend to be, and really we require them to be very focused in their mission, in their geographic location from which where they're given services from. In many ways, each nonprofit, and there's a large community of nonprofits, each nonprofit has to be very focused on what they do and try to do that well. And so the city, though, has a broader perspective. The city sees the needs, as you mentioned, from around the community, maybe an issue in one district or another, or maybe broader than that. And the city also has some push, has the ability to bring people together. When the mayor or when one of the city council people call, you take that call, and you are likely going to show up for that meeting if you're invited to that as a nonprofit leader. Whereas other people may not be able to gather and convene that same group. And so I think that's the other role I see that city fathers, city leaders can play, and many of them have done that well over the past years.
Awesome. So let me get right to the next question for you. So we'll just go with you first, Mr. Grubb. Of Tyler's first responders, you say it's only going to take one terrible incident for either of the departments before we get waking up to the need that we need to have more people on the streets. I'm for giving them what they need, and what they say they need is more people. What are the first responders missing, and how could you help them when you become a member of the city council if you're elected?
The police and fire folks that I've visited with, especially over the past few months, are doing a great job and are covering the needed bases. They get stretched at times. That night we had the fire at Greenberg's and a couple other fires at the same time. They were stretched to the limit. There's times they get stretched when they have to make an emergency call out to nearly Lindale now, because we have some city property and an apartment complex and a new restaurant out by I-20, which is quite a hike from any of the substations for police or fire. But those are stretching those folks, and so far they're up to the task. But they also tell me at times they're a short shift. They are not fully staffed. That they are perhaps have less than 10 police officers on patrol in a night for the entire city. That perhaps we have fire department crews that are short-staffed. They're able to take care of business, but when you stretch people out to their full capacities consistently and continually, you're asking for the system to break.
Awesome, thank you. Kind of along the same lines, Mr. Hene, you say that you are the candidate with the relationship with police and fire, and that you will ensure that District 1 is safe. How is District 1 being kept safe, and what are some of the needs that you believe exist? Sure,
I think I am that candidate. I've been endorsed by both the police officers and the firefighters, the Tyler Professional Firefighters Association, and then for the police officers, the Tyler Patrolmen's Association. I have those relationships with both the police department and fire department. Currently, I serve as the chair for the Civil Service Commission, so I've worked with both departments for the past several years and have maintained those relationships and hear firsthand what they are experiencing. And so I believe providing for those first responders is one of the main objectives of City Council, in addition to the infrastructure needs that we have previously talked about this evening. If not greater, equal to would be providing for the first responders. And so maintaining those relationships with those department heads and with the officers and firefighters in general is something that I've done the past several years and will continue to do. I have pledged to both of them that I will not cut their budgets. That's probably one of the reasons why I have been endorsed by both of them, and so it's to ensure that they are properly and fully funded so that they can properly and fully meet the needs of the citizens when they do need to respond to a call. And both departments are exceptional at what they do. The standards that both departments have set for our citizens are exceptional, And that's one thing that I believe shouldn't happen, is that our standards be reduced or lowered. So it's maintaining those same standards that we currently have in place.
Thank you very much, and thank you to both of you for being ardent supporters of our firefighters and police department here in the city. I know that all citizens, regardless of the candidate that they choose, will appreciate that sentiment.
Well, they're the true heroes and the true ones that are serving the city, more so than if Mr. Grubb or I are elected.
Absolutely.
Yes, and Ken, I'd love to follow your lead and take some things that were said in previous interview and just ask you some additional question about that. So I have one for each of you. I'll start with you, Greg. So something that you said is, I'm a firm believer that housing is the first of essential needs. Without a home, you can survive, but you're not really going to thrive unless you have your own home. Where does Tyler need housing most, and how might the city tackle that essential component of quality of living in Tyler?
Yeah, that's a big issue, and it's not an easy one to solve, and doesn't seem to go away. We've been struggling with that for years. But yeah, stable housing is the single most important factor to a family's stability and thriving. That they when they're forced to be moving around, the kids don't perform well, the parents miss a lot of work. Everything flows downhill from there. The program we provided at PATH allowed folks to move into what we call transitional housing, and which we owned. We owned 51 homes and rented them out to families who were ready to make a change, ready to improve and get more stable. And we worked with them over a couple of years to allow them to be able to afford the current low-income housing stock, which is very, very limited. The problem is there's enough of a shortage of housing here available that once a lower-priced property comes on the market, it's snatched up quickly, either by somebody wanting to live there or by an investor wanting to rent it out. And there's a fair amount of substandard rental properties here in this town as well. So the city needs to bring some of their influence to bear here. There's a neighborhood services department, which that's one of their main objectives, is to improve that. But they are totally funded by federal dollars. No local dollars go into that. So as the federal budget continues to decline, especially funding for housing, then that department continues to decrease in their activities. So those areas like Hidden Palace that are being built right now with some affordable housing projects, which will probably require some down payment assistance for folks to get into those houses. Those are a great start, but building our own housing to provide to low-income families is going to be a very slow way out of it. What Hidden Palace has, 11 homes total. So
you certainly know the need is great.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll take a different topic over to Stuart. In your Loop interview, you use the word conservative to describe yourself and your goals. For your constituents who would not describe themselves as conservative, how would you serve and represent them as their city council member?
By taking a common sense approach to all the issues. Just because an issue presents itself for the city doesn't mean it's an issue that just affects District 1. You got to stop and think about, okay, if I make this decision, not only is it going to affect citizens or residents of District 1, but how does it affect a citizen or resident of District 2 or District 4 or District 6? And would somebody residing in one of those districts want their hard-earned income and their hard-earned tax dollars paying for a project that happens to be located in District 1? And so it's realizing that it's not just District 1 that we represent, but the entire city that we represent. And I think City Council has done a great job at doing that. The mayor has created a team atmosphere, has really gotten everybody involved, and everybody is focused on the greater good for the entire city and not just focusing solely on their only district.
Great, thank you for responding to that. Ken?
Awesome. I think I want to start with you, Stuart, and just kind of follow up on your previous comments here. You say that city council is about keeping limited and small government and keeping those conservative values, not bringing issues into the city council that should not be addressed at that level. What additional issues are you referring to that might be brought into a city council meeting, and how are they interfering?
Sure. So I'm a proponent for small government, limited government, personal liberties, personal freedoms, and maintaining those rights that have been granted by the Constitution. And so the city council does not have any business getting involved in creating ordinances, legislation, or rules that would interfere with those liberties. As we've discussed here today, the main issues that city council needs to focus on, the health and safety of the constituents in the districts in the city, maintaining the first responders, providing for the needs, addressing wastewater, water, transportation, all the infrastructure needs. And so it's not creating extra obstacles and addressing issues that would limit somebody's personal liberties, limit somebody's freedoms, and addressing issues that don't have any involvement with city council that somebody's tax dollars might go towards, because that's not where the tax dollars should be spent. And that's one reason why we have a great cost of living here, is because we solely focus on those issues that city council needs to focus on, and not any of those additional issues that have no business at the forefront of city council.
What are some of the issues specifically?
Anything that doesn't relate to infrastructure, first responders, transportation, anything outside of that.
So some of the issues that we've seen across the country, and even in some cities in Texas, include things like city councils taking up issues like immigration or abortion. So are you saying that on issues like that that have no bearing with tax dollars at the local level, that you don't believe they should be brought before a city council?
I don't think abortion should be addressed by the city council. The taxpayers should not fund abortions, and I'm not even a proponent for abortion. I'm anti-abortion, and that's if a city council needs to adopt an ordinance saying abortions can happen here or abortions can happen here, that's not something that the city needs to get involved and address.
So you're saying taking up the issue at all is something that you're against, whether a person is for or against?
Personally, I think it should not be addressed at the city council level. And I'm not going to be the one that brings it forward to have it in front of city council. Now, if it is brought before city council, I've heard of cities around the state designating themselves as sanctuary cities where abortions cannot happen. If that does come before our city council, obviously I would vote in favor of that, because
would you not take the stance that you don't think that it should be brought before city council and use your mechanisms that are available legislatively to make sure that it's not even considered?
I just said I would. That's something that I'm not going to do. But that doesn't mean it can be prohibited from being put forth in front of city council, because I'm just one of 6. And so, as I mentioned, I'm not going to be the one that propels that argument. If it happens to be brought before city council, I'm not going to vote against that, because I'm not in favor of abortion. And so if the issue comes up that should Tyler be a sanctuary city, I'm not going to be the sponsor of that piece of legislation. But at the same time, if there's a vote on it, I'm not voting against it, because I'm not in favor of abortion.
Excellent. So, Mr. Grubb, kind of along the same lines, issues that are not appropriate for the city council. How do you respond to these issues that other cities are taking up across the state and across the country in similar fashion to the response from Mr. Hene?
Yeah, it's really easy to get sidetracked, and that's that's when we're responding to outside forces, as I think of them. I think the citizens within the city ought to be setting the agenda. I think the leaders here ought to be taking care of the people that are here and the people that we would love for them to come here. All those things that you mentioned are things that outside of any power or any appropriate measures that city council could take. It's not I don't think it's appropriate for City Council to take up something like that. What's harming our people, that would be something different, and you might consider that as being outside of City Council's role. And but many cities have taken on. Let me switch topics just a little bit and say payday lending. So there are many cities around the state and the country, but particularly around the state of Texas, have taken on payday lending ordinances, not outlawing payday lending operations. Those are private businesses and apparently a really thriving business, but they're doing serious damage to many of the people in poverty. And I've seen that firsthand, and I have many friends who are victims. And so could the City Council take on some issue like payday lending, maybe some reasonable ordinance regulating a business that at times can cause harm to our citizens? Yes, I think that would be something that would be appropriate for City Council to take up.
Excellent. So let me bounce right back to you, Mr. Hene, and then I'm gonna hand it over to Ashley. So just so you know, that the goal is not to make you take a position on national issues in your City Council race. Absolutely not. You have the right to have whatever personal stance you want. That doesn't diminish the place that you have or the stature that you have to do this job. So let me ask you this. Of the things that the former City Council member who was in District 1 who is retiring has done, what can you point out as great things that have been done already in District 1 that you would like to continue?
I think the great things in District 1, we're the fastest growing district in the city, I think. The two corridors that bound our district, Old Jacksonville Highway and Broadway, are experiencing tremendous growth, if not the most growth in the city. And so obviously there's something good happening in District 1. And so keeping that going, that not only has Councilwoman Sellers done, but also before her when Sam Azalea was on council, implementing those continuous policies that they have. The big one being the half-cent sales tax. That was established under Kevin Eltife when Sam Azalea was on City Council. So that has really helped with the city's growth. But people are attracted to District 1 for a living. You got Faulkner Park down there. My son plays baseball at Faulkner Park. I help coach his team. And so it's a great place to have families out. You have Fresh on the west side of the district. A lot of families go there, spend time at both playgrounds. Both of my kids enjoy doing that. And so there are plenty of hiking and biking trails also within District 1. And the new addition of the skate park there at Faulkner Park as well. So the amenities in District 1 are great. And so it's continuing the upkeep of those, continuing to keep those projects in place in District 1 to ensure that the citizens love living in District 1.
Awesome. I think you point out a lot of great things and previous work that's been done. So that I think that's what makes this a very competitive race, because there are obviously high expectations for the individual that will lead District 1. So something that you'd like to point out that's been done great from the previous leadership of District 1?
I have to agree with Stuart's list. It's a great list. In addition to, all the shopping and dining opportunities there are, it is a wonderful part of town to be in. I can go for days at a time without leaving our district and take care of my banking. I can go to church. I can visit with my friends. I can go to Starbucks. I can do almost anything I want to do in District 1. The thing that I really like and really think that has been one of the single biggest additions most recently had been the Legacy Trails. That extension of our walking and biking trail system that goes all the way down to Cumberland Road now and up to Fresh on Old Jacksonville and down along Old Jacksonville Highway, and plans are to bring it on in to town and connect up with trail system in town. I just think that's a wonderful addition to District 1 and to the city as a whole, allowing people a safe place that's easily accessible to get some basic exercise and some sunshine, being able to associate with friends outside and be a little healthier too. I think anything we can do to improve the health of our citizens is a plus.
Awesome. Thank you
And
both.
if I may add, one of the things that some of the residents may have seen today compared to yesterday is the striping of the bike lanes. The city council just approved the new bike lanes throughout the entire city. And I've noticed just in the past couple of days that those have been freshly striped. So that's something that's new and beneficial, not just for District 1, but for all of
That's
Tyler.
excellent. You have an eye for detail.
That's right.
Very good.
Well, let's go back to, you mentioned specifically between Broadway and Old Jacksonville, and we've seen a lot of growth in that area, especially in the last 10 years. And both of you spoke positively about the changes that brought to District 1. It's brought its challenges too, both to businesses and also to residents of that area in various ways. So kind of looking back at that and reflecting on lessons learned from that growth in District 1, what are some, or how would you address growth in other areas of the city if you were on the council?
I think it goes back to some of the issues with the timing of the lights. You know, that's something that could have been started sooner. I know the current plan is to start the Broadway sector and work its way out. And, you know, would I have liked to seen it start on the southern side of the city in District 1? Sure, because that would directly benefit District 1. But I understand the need to start in the middle and work out. So understanding that concept, while at the same time when new roads are developed and new traffic lights are placed in District 1, making sure that those lights have the proper technology and systems in place where they can be synced and hooked up with the existing lights, and not something that needs to be redone 5-10 years down the road. You know, one of the things that is currently in the works that's going to take place in the next 10 years or so is the new water treatment facility out in Mixon. You know, you mentioned in the past 10 years the growth in District 1 has just been tremendous. Well, the water needs need to be met because of the more residents in District 1. And so having that new water facility in the next 10 years, the wastewater treatment facility, will be a great benefit, not just for District 1, but for all of Tyler, to help address and alleviate some of the pressure on the other wastewater treatment and water issues throughout the city.
Great, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And Greg, I'd like to come back to you with a final question that I have. In your Loop interview, you remind us that being a member of City Council is a volunteer, nonpartisan position. Why is it important to you that City Council members focus on being nonpartisan?
I think that allows us to be more collaborative. I think we shouldn't do anything that causes more division. We do have some history of division in this community, and some of those gains have been hard fought, and I don't want to lose any of that. I want our racial, I want our ethnic, I want our political, I want our whole society to come together more than pulling apart. And so being nonpartisan in nature allows City Council to address the needs of the citizens. First, the needs of the citizens in your district, and then also the citizens of the entire community. It's an opportunity, a rare opportunity, especially in our culture today, to allow people to work together rather than finding ways to fight each other. And so that's what I would look forward to, would be the opportunity to bring together people of different backgrounds, different experiences, and let us work together to find some more innovative solutions to the issues that we're addressing.
Great. Anything to add on that issue?
Yes. I don't think having conservative principles, and I'm not shy or one to hide that I have conservative principles. I think it's being forthright with the citizens and voters in District 1 of who I am, and not wanting to change things or hide things to pretend to be somebody that I'm not, or to pretend to show something that I'm not to a potential voter. And just because it's a nonpartisan election doesn't mean you check your principles at the door. I'm going to have my conservative principles and my beliefs when I'm sitting up there on City Council, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected. And that plays into some of the decisions of keeping a limited government, keeping government out of the way of businesses, maintaining the cost of living that we have. And so it's not about fighting. It's not about racial issues that maybe have been suggested about having a partisan issues or a partisan label. I don't see it that way at all. And so just because somebody might have conservative beliefs or conservative principles doesn't mean there's any intention that would create fighting or aggression or conflict amongst different people on council.
Excellent.
I appreciate both of your authentic responses.
Yeah, thank you so much. I have one quick follow-up question and then my final question of the evening for you. But my follow-up question, based on a comment from Mr. Grubb, and we'll start with you, Mr. Hene. What is the state of race relations in the city of Tyler, and what can we do to improve it if improvements need to be made? So we'll start with you.
I think Tyler is kind of insulated from other areas in the country, and the race relations here are great. There are 2 programs in place that I think help contribute to that. Each October, there's the Night Out program, and the current city council members and the mayor, along with the representatives from the police department, host different gatherings, different cookouts in the neighborhoods all throughout the city. I've attended many of them, and there's a representative from the city and the police department that meet with the residents in that neighborhood to maintain those relationships. The city has also done a great job. I think pre-COVID, they did it a little more. I think it was once a month, and I think since COVID hit, they've kind of gone away from their routine schedule, and I know they have the intention of picking it back up once things return to a somewhat normal, whatever that new normal may be. But they met at different churches once a month, the church leaders and the city leaders, to maintain communication. And so it's keeping that channel open, keeping that dialogue open to ensure that no problems do arise, because that's one thing you don't want is for nobody to talk and all of a sudden there's a problem that's been festering. With everybody having an open dialogue and being able to talk about problems and potential solutions, the possibility of problems arising in the future aren't as great.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Mr. Grubb, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, I think we are blessed to have good race relations here. Not great, but very good. And a lot of people are putting in a lot of work in that. I mean, those quarterly church and community meetings Stuart was referring to were important, and we've missed those, not being able to do that over the past year or so. But those are about to start back up again, and those will be helpful. And that's part of the plan, I think. Part of the vision I have is of getting people in the room together. Proximity takes care of most of those issues. If we have proximity, then we have relationship, and then we can have progress. So I think we can continue that. There are some great community leaders from all the different ethnic groups, and I know them well, and we can all work together if we really want to, and if we really take the time, we can listen to each other and move forward. But yes, I think we are blessed to have so far a good racial relationship across the different races.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm going to go right into my final question, and I think the final question of the evening. So let's end on this note, and we'll start with you, Mr. Hene. In 30 seconds, if you had to convince a voter to vote for you and why you should be the choice for City Council in District 1, what would you tell them?
So we get 2 minutes for all the other questions, and just 30 seconds for this one important question.
20 now.
Yeah, 20 now. I'm a family man. I'm a conservative Christian, and so I'm not going to do something that's not right for my family. So at the same time, I'm not going to do something that wouldn't be right for your family. And that's the stance that I'm going to take on all the issues. And so if it's something that I believe in that I think would benefit my family, then I think it would hopefully benefit your family as well. And that's the approach that I'm going to take.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Mr. Grubb, 30 seconds. Why should they select you, your constituents, for District 1 City Council?
I love this city. We made the choice to stay here when I got transferred here in the oil and gas business. We knew we wanted to live here and raise our family here. My 45 years of experience in business, nonprofits, and congregations has let me see a lot of things, let me meet a lot of people and form a lot of relationships. I will use every one of those as your full-time city councilman representing District 1.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. It's no doubt that you both have great experience and that the constituents in District 1 have a great race and great choices before them. So thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Appreciate it.